A gleaming mansion perched on a lush hillside. A wealthy family with a laundry list of secrets and a cunning outsider willing to do anything to stake her claim on the fortune. In the grand foyer echoes the footsteps of a new mistress, bold enough to try and replace the rightful lady of the house, who also happens to be pregnant. But fate weaves its own brand of poetic justice. The hidden bank statements and frozen accounts become the ultimate trump card. Betrayals spiral out of control as scandal, greed, and vengeance collide. Welcome to a story so dramatic it feels torn from real life, a saga of power and payback you won't be able to forget. The Gilmore name had been synonymous with prestige and fortune for decades. Their vast wealth originated from a series of wise investments and real estate endeavors started by the charismatic patriarch Alexander Gilmore first in the 1960s. Fast forward to the present, and his grandson Alexander, Alex Gilmore III, lived in a sprawling estate on Ridgewood Drive with his wife Cassandra Cassie Gilmore. They were the kind of couple whose every movement was chronicled in society pages. Their annual fundraisers for children's hospitals, their lavish parties for well-heeled guests, and their romantic travels across Europe elevated them to near-mythic status in their circle. Yet behind the glossy facade of success and matrimony, cracks began to show. Cassie Gilmore was expecting the couple's first child, a child so fervently anticipated by Alex's family, because it would be the next Gilmore heir. Cassie, ever the poised hostess, had meticulously arranged the baby's nursery, selected plush pastel wallpapers, and even chosen a name that would be as timeless as the Gilmore legacy. The entire staff bustled with excitement for the child. The butler, Mr. Jameson, confided in the mansion's housekeeper, Meredith, that he had never seen such unbridled joy in that household, not in his entire 25 years of service. Cassie carried the baby through her second trimester, glowing with the promise of motherhood. But beneath her serene smile loomed a troubling sense of distance from Alex. He had grown cold, absent, and suspiciously busy. He'd come home late, slipping into the bedroom at odd hours of the night, often accompanied by the faint smell of a different perfume. Cassie tried to confront him, but he diverted her concerns with sweet assurances or short, sharp arguments that left her feeling paranoid and guilty for suspecting him. She was pregnant after all. Maybe her hormones were making her see ghosts. However, months earlier, Cassie had found a single damning piece of evidence, a gold earring lodged in the passenger seat of Alex's brand-new sports car. It wasn't hers. She'd never worn anything like it. She placed it in a velvet pouch and tucked it away in her closet, hoping it would remain an isolated incident, some bizarre slip. If it happened again, she told herself she would take action. Sure enough, more signs surfaced. A suspicious text message glimpsed on his phone, a lipstick stain on a white collar. Slowly, heartbreak settled into Cassie's chest. But she needed proof, undeniable proof, before deciding how to proceed. Living in that opulent mansion with an unfaithful husband took a toll. Cassie could not shake the image of the secret mistress. Who was she? Where did they meet? Did Alex love this woman, or was she just a passing fling? Cassie confided in her most trusted friend and personal assistant, Linda Carter, who had known Cassie since high school. Linda was fiercely loyal, ready to do everything in her power to protect her friend and the unborn child. It was Linda who found the name Veronica Brooks. She discovered it in an email Alex accidentally left open on his laptop, a short cryptic note from V. Brooks referencing an upcoming dinner date. Linda's heart pounded as she read the lines. She quickly took screenshots, transferring them to her phone as quietly as possible. If Cassie needed a stronger case against Alex, this was it. Word around town eventually reached Cassandra's ears as well. A neighbor, Mark Henderson, who was tangentially part of the same country club, mentioned that he'd seen Alex dining with a young brunette with striking features and an insatiable laugh. They were at an expensive French restaurant, leaning in as though lovers oblivious to the rest of the world. The rumor spoken in hushed tones by Mark felt like a bullet to Cassie's heart. She tried to maintain her composure, but deep within she was roiling with anger, confusion, and an all-consuming sense of betrayal. Worried about the baby, Cassie found a way to push aside her emotional torment. She had regular prenatal checkups at the best private clinic, courtesy of the Gilmore wealth. Ultrasounds brought her fleeting moments of happiness. Each time she heard her baby's heartbeat, it reminded her of what truly mattered. She vowed to keep her child safe and not let an affair ruin her emotional or financial security. If Alex's mistress tried to usurp her place, she would be ready. She would protect her child, her inheritance, and everything she had built alongside Alex. Despite the emotional chaos, Cassie was determined not to lose her sense of agency. As the heir-bearer and legal spouse, she held a unique power in the Gilmore empire. She wasn't just a trophy wife. Over the years, Cassie had helped rebrand their family's philanthropic efforts, forging strong alliances with powerful families and forging deeper ties with the Gilmore investment partners. She was not the naive socialite some people assumed her to be. She knew more about the Gilmore financial holdings than many suspected. More importantly, she was privy to certain legal aspects regarding estate planning, trust funds, and freeze orders. Slowly, methodically, Cassie set the stage. What Cassie did not anticipate was how brazen Veronica Brooks would become. The first time Cassie laid eyes on Veronica was a jolt to the system. Veronica was a flame-haired beauty with a sharp wit and an unapologetic smirk. She wore designer dresses that Cassie recognized as runway exclusives, an indication that Alex had likely been spoiling her. It was at a charity fashion show. Veronica strolled in on Alex's arm, as if she had every right to be there. Cassie, stunned, quickly ducked behind a tall bouquet arrangement. Linda, who was beside her, stifled a gasp. Even more shocking was how Veronica would occasionally glance around, seemingly searching for Cassie with a triumphant glimmer in her eyes, as though daring the wife to make a scene. From that moment on, Cassie realized that this was not just a typical affair, hidden discreetly behind closed doors. Veronica intended to dethrone Cassie to become the new Mrs. Gilmore. It was a brazen attempt to supplant the pregnant wife and claim the Gilmore fortune for herself. In the gilded world of high society, appearances were everything. Cassie was used to wearing a mask of composure. That night, her resolve hardened. She would not be humiliated publicly, nor would she give Veronica the satisfaction of a confrontation that might result in further scandal. Cassie remained silent, but she was no longer merely suspicious. She was determined to unearth every detail and plan her next steps meticulously. With Linda's help, she delved into Alex's schedule, cross-referencing suspicious nights, checking financial statements for large, unexplained expenditures. The puzzle came together in vivid detail, each piece revealing Alex's betrayal. The next several weeks were tough. Cassie's blood pressure skyrocketed from stress, forcing her doctor to recommend bed rest. The staff was told to cater to her every need, while Alex surprisingly paid more attention to her, likely to maintain an illusion of a harmonious marriage, while the pregnancy was under scrutiny by the watchful eyes of the public. Cameras flashed whenever Cassie and Alex stepped out of a vehicle at some event, with tabloids gushing about the glowing mother-to-be and the devoted husband. Only Cassie knew the truth. The moment they returned home, Alex would often retreat into his study, texting on his phone with that infuriating grin that wasn't meant for her. Despite her heartbreak, Cassie recognized that if Veronica was truly as bold and calculating as she seemed, then the next steps were inevitable. To a mistress who craved power and a public claim simply having an affair was not enough. Eventually, Veronica would try to push Cassie out of the picture entirely. The rumors would swirl: a high-profile divorce, scandalous infidelity, financial gains for the cunning mistress. Cassie's baby could even be used as a pawn. Determined to preserve her dignity and safeguard her unborn child's future, Cassie started forging a plan. A plan that would revolve around freezing accounts, halting trust distributions, and taking swift legal action the moment the mistress overstepped her boundaries. As Cassie quietly gathered her resources, Veronica Brooks put her own scheme into motion. Perhaps she thought Cassie was weak, or perhaps she craved a more direct confrontation. Regardless, the next chapter of this entangled saga would be set when Veronica decided to force the confrontation on Cassie's own turf, the Gilmore mansion. On a warm Friday afternoon, Cassie was in the Grand Library, its shelves lined with leather-bound volumes of literary classics and historical tomes. She was resting on a plush chaise lounge, an embroidered throw draped over her legs, reading quietly to distract her anxious mind. The windows were open, letting in the crisp breeze and the fragrance of freshly pruned rose bushes. She heard the sound of tires crunching the gravel driveway. Usually she would ignore such mundane arrivals. Staff and deliveries were normal. But something made her look up. Through the window she glimpsed a sleek black sedan rolling up to the mansion's entrance. Out stepped Veronica Brooks, dressed in a striking burgundy dress that clung to her every curve. She carried a small designer handbag, and her face shone with bold confidence. Cassie's heart hammered in her chest. What was she doing here in broad daylight, pulling up to the main entrance as though she owned the place? Cassie summoned Linda, who was nearby rummaging through a stack of documents. Together they hurried to the foyer, just as Mr. Jameson opened the grand double doors. Veronica strolled inside with an imperious tilt to her chin, taking in the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, and the gilded banister of the sweeping staircase. She looked like a shopper evaluating a potential purchase, eyeing every corner as though deciding if it met her standards. Mr. Jameson, professional as ever, approached her politely. "Miss, do you have an appointment? Shall I announce you?" Veronica flashed a smile. "I'm expected," she said coolly, before Mr. Jameson could respond. Alex appeared at the top of the staircase. "Veronica," he muttered, eyes flashing with alarm. He gave a quick glance at Cassie and Linda, who were standing to the side, the tension crackling in the air. Cassie's expression was as controlled as possible, but inside she was roiling with fury at this blatant invasion. "I wanted to see where you live," Veronica said, her voice dripping with a casual arrogance that sent chills through Cassie. "We've been sneaking around for so long. I wanted a glimpse of the real Gilmore lifestyle. Besides, I hear your wife is home. Maybe she'd like to finally meet me." Alex rushed down the stairs, a mixture of anxiety and anger in his features. "We agreed we wouldn't do this here," he hissed under his breath, gripping Veronica's arm. But she shrugged him off, stepping forward. Cassie realized then that Veronica Brooks wasn't just a mistress. She was a predator on the hunt, determined to mark her territory in front of everyone. Cassie inhaled slowly, trying to maintain her composure. Her unborn baby's well-being was her priority. "Veronica Brooks, I assume," she said in a measured tone. Veronica took her in from head to toe, her gaze lingering on Cassie's baby bump. "Yes. And you must be the pregnant Mrs. Gilmore." She said pregnant like it was a mere inconvenience. She then turned and surveyed the foyer. Charming place. A bit old-fashioned, don't you think Linda couldn't contain herself? You have no shame, she snapped, stepping forward. But Cassie placed a gentle hand on Linda's arm, stopping her from escalating the confrontation. Cassie looked from Veronica to Alex, whose face was pale, as though he wanted to vanish into the polished floor. This was the reckoning she had dreaded, yet also the one she had prepared for in her heart. 1,000 questions and accusations swirled in her mind, but she settled on the only words that seemed fitting. "Why are you here, Veronica?" Veronica lifted a shoulder. "I'm tired of waiting in the shadows. I think Alex and I deserve something more official. I should be able to come and go as I please." She let her slender hand drift to Alex's chest, a brazen gesture in front of the wife. "He promised me a future here." Cassie's heart thudded. So it was true. Veronica had come to stake her claim on the Gilmore mansion, on the Gilmore name, the Gilmore power, and the Gilmore fortune. Alex did nothing to rebuke her. Instead, he looked to Cassie with something akin to a silent plea. Perhaps he wanted Cassie to remain calm, to avoid a scandal, to maintain the facade. But Cassie was done with facades. "I think you're delusional," Cassie said, each syllable precise. "You are not walking into my home like you belong here. This conversation is over." Veronica smirked, her eyes flashing triumph. "We'll see about that. I have a few lawyers on my side too, you know." Then she lowered her voice conspiratorially, still loud enough for Linda and Alex to hear. "I happen to have a small surprise of my own." Cassie felt her stomach lurch. She could only guess what that meant. A rumor, perhaps, that Veronica was pregnant as well. Or had Veronica discovered some financial vulnerability of the Gilmore family? Cassie's mind raced. She glanced at Alex, but he avoided her gaze. His features were etched with guilt. Before Cassie could respond, Veronica turned on her heel, heading toward the living room uninvited. Mr. Jameson looked distraught, unsure whether to physically stop the intruder. Linda was white with rage. Cassie, summoning her last shred of calm, addressed Alex. "I think you should escort your guest out. Now." Alex, cornered and flushed with panic, nodded mutely. He caught up to Veronica, gently placing a hand on her arm to steer her away. She allowed herself to be led, but before reaching the door, she turned back, her voice echoing in the foyer. "I'll see you soon, Mrs. Gilmore." In the aftermath, Cassie's legs trembled. Linda helped her onto the chaise lounge. Tears pricked at Cassie's eyes, but she fought them back. She would not let Veronica see her cry. Never. When Alex returned, he tried to apologize. He stuttered some excuse about Veronica being unstable, how he never intended for her to show up here, how it was all a mistake. Cassie listened in silence, her expression stoic. Yet inside she seethed with rage and heartbreak. She kept remembering Veronica's parting words. "I'll see you soon." That night, as the mansion's corridors fell silent, Cassie couldn't sleep. She stood by the window of her bedroom, looking down at the moonlit gardens. She could see the gazebo, the manicured hedges, and the reflection of the moon in the koi pond. On a normal night, it would have been a serene sight. But tonight, all she felt was an undercurrent of fear, betrayal, and anger. She placed a protective hand over her abdomen. The baby kicked in response as if sensing her turmoil. Tears finally came hot and relentless, but resolved. She knew she had to act. The time had come to consult her lawyers and to wield the financial power she still had. Cassie had discovered a legal instrument that, if invoked, could freeze certain assets in the event of marital misconduct, particularly if there were concerns about large sums of money being spent without spousal consent. It was time to speak to the Gilmore family attorney, an old friend of Alexander Gilmore Fuss, who believed in upholding the family legacy. Cassie thought he might be sympathetic. After all, the unborn child was the future Gilmore heir. Ensuring the child's interests would be paramount. Unknown to Cassie, Veronica was making her own bold moves that very same night. She dialed Alex's cell phone repeatedly, demanding a conversation, pressing him to fulfill the promises he'd made in the hush of their private rendezvous. She was done waiting. If Alex wouldn't publicly acknowledge her and end his marriage, Veronica vowed to take what she wanted by force, either by blackmail or an open scandal. She had photos, text messages, even recordings of their intimate moments. She teased the possibility of leaking them if Alex tried to discard her. Meanwhile, Linda remained a vigilant ally for Cassie. She spent the evening gathering documents related to Alex's personal bank accounts and investments. She pored over financial statements, hunting for anything suspicious that could help Cassie's case. What she found was disturbing: a series of extravagant charges at high-end boutiques, luxury hotels, and even an apartment lease in Veronica Brooks's name. The money for that lease had been siphoned from a joint marital account. It was more than enough evidence to justify the freeze Cassie planned to initiate. The stage was set. The mistress had arrived brazenly, challenging the pregnant wife. But Cassie held a trump card that neither Alex nor Veronica fully grasped. In the labyrinth of high-stakes finance legal documents and old money alliances, Cassie Gilmore had an advantage that would flip the script: the power to freeze every single account that funded Alex's double life. It didn't take long for word to spread among the Gilmore staff that the mistress had made a brazen daytime appearance. Maids whispered in the halls, the chef clucked disapprovingly in the kitchen, and even the gardener, who rarely got involved in household gossip, shook his head at the scandal. Though the estate was grand gossip, travelled quickly under its lofty roofs, fueled by the shock that someone would dare walk in with such blatant disrespect toward the lady of the house. Cassie Gilmore's immediate priority was to protect her unborn child, both emotionally and financially. She understood that the surest way to preserve her child's future was to secure the family assets. Over the next few days, she placed discreet phone calls to the Gilmore family attorney, William Stevenson, who had been the legal backbone of the dynasty for decades. He was a reserved, silver-haired man in his 70s, with keen eyes that missed nothing. He had once remarked to Cassie, "Never underestimate the hidden clauses in a well-drafted prenup or trust agreement." She had taken that advice to heart. Cassie explained the situation in a calm, steady voice. She didn't ask for pity. She asked for action. Stevenson had known something was amiss, as Alex had recently inquired about transferring significant sums out of the family trust. "I can't comment on the personal aspects of your marriage, Mrs. Gilmore," Stevenson said. "But from a legal perspective, if there's risk of marital assets being squandered without your consent, you have grounds for an injunction and a freeze." He paused, then added, "Your father-in-law created these trusts to ensure the continuity of the Gilmore legacy. Your unborn child is part of that legacy. I will do whatever is in my power to protect that." Cassie exhaled in relief, tears stinging the corners of her eyes. She realized she wasn't alone in this fight. An entire system built by the Gilmore ancestors was designed to shield the rightful heirs from unscrupulous outsiders. Veronica Brooks might not be easily cowed, but Cassie had an arsenal of legal recourse at her disposal. She quietly thanked Stevenson and began finalizing the paperwork. Meanwhile, Linda dove deeper into Alex's financial movements. She discovered suspicious wire transfers to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, listed under a shell corporation that Veronica Brooks nominally owned. The pattern was unmistakable. Alex intended to set Veronica up for a luxurious life, potentially using the Gilmore fortune without Cassie's knowledge. Fueled by righteous fury, Linda organized all the digital evidence into a confidential folder to present to Stevenson. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. Veronica wasn't just an affair. She was a threat with designs on massive wealth. A day after Veronica's uninvited visit, Cassie sent an invitation to Alex, requesting he meet her in the mansion's parlor. She wanted to speak privately, hoping to gauge where his loyalties truly lay. When he arrived, she noticed the weariness in his eyes, the tension in the lines of his mouth. "You wanted to see me?" he asked, feigning nonchalance as he settled into a velvet armchair. Cassie calmly poured tea, the delicate porcelain cups clinking softly in the otherwise silent room. "Yes, Alex. I think we should talk about what happened, and about where this marriage is going." He glanced at the teacup, then at Cassie's swollen belly gilt flickering across his features. "I'm sorry about Veronica," he began, voice shaking slightly. "She shouldn't have come here like that. I never wanted you to find out this way." "Why did you want me to find out at all?" Cassie asked quietly, stirring her tea. "It's not like you were making much of an effort to hide your affair. She's wearing designer clothes I recognize from your credit card statements. She's parading in public on your arm. Do you expect me to continue living with this humiliation while I'm carrying your child?" Alex rubbed his eyes. It just got out of hand. Veronica and I, well, it started as, I don't know, a mistake. But I got in too deep. She's persistent. Cassie's lips thinned. That's an understatement. He looked up, desperation in his gaze. "I still care about you, Cassie. About the baby. I never intended to." She raised a hand, stopping him. "Don't insult me. You intended to betray me the moment you started sneaking behind my back. And your so-called care hasn't stopped you from siphoning money for her." Shock flitted over his face. "You've been looking into my accounts." Cassie exhaled, feeling no remorse. "I learned from the best. I watched how you and your family protect your finances, and I studied them for precisely this scenario. I'm pregnant, I'm your wife, and if you're funneling assets to someone else, I have every right to intervene." He pressed his lips together. "What are you going to do, freeze my accounts?" "That'll just hurt both of us." A twinge of sadness hit Cassie. She realized that Alex, the man she once loved, wholeheartedly, now saw her as an adversary. But her baby's future took precedence. "If you intend to continue this farce with Veronica, then yes, I will. I won't stand by while you fund your mistress's lifestyle." He scoffed. "You're not the only one who has power here, Cassie." That threat hung in the air. Cassie studied his face, searching for the man she'd married, the man who'd once placed a diamond ring on her finger and promised to love her forever. All she saw was fear, arrogance, and guilt. She set down her cup with a decisive clink. "I suggest you think carefully about where your true responsibilities lie, Alex. Because if you force my hand, I won't hesitate." Their conversation ended with no resolution, just a silent understanding that the battle lines were drawn. Cassie would protect her child. Alex was torn but seemed more driven by Veronica's manipulations than he cared to admit. He left the parlor, and Cassie felt a wave of exhaustion. Yet a spark of determination burned inside her. She had the law on her side, and she had moral righteousness too. The next few days were a whirlwind of strategic planning. William Stevenson expedited the paperwork, drafting an injunction that would freeze specific joint and trust accounts if Cassie could provide evidence of Alex's financial misconduct. Linda diligently compiled that evidence: receipts, bank statements, screenshots, hotel reservations. She also secured sworn affidavits from staff members who had witnessed Veronica's intrusion or noticed suspicious behaviors. Every phone call, every form signed, brought Cassie closer to the moment she would pull the trigger on the freeze. Veronica, meanwhile, didn't stand idle. She continued to contact Alex incessantly, demanding updates on his promise to get rid of Cassie. She even went so far as to show up at his office building downtown, causing a minor scandal among the employees. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueling speculation that Veronica might be pregnant or was seeking hush money. Alex grew frazzled, snapping at colleagues and missing important meetings. The mistress's demands escalated. She wanted a key to the mansion, an engagement ring, official introduction to the Gilmore family's inner circle. She was convinced that if she just applied enough pressure, she would secure her place as Alex's new partner. Unbeknownst to both Alex and Veronica, Cassie was prepared to reveal her hand at any moment. Linda quietly arranged for Cassie to meet with a judge, privately presenting the evidence of Alex's unapproved transfers and the legitimate fear that large sums could be moved offshore, depriving Cassie and her unborn child of their rightful financial security. It was a tricky legal matter. Judges were sometimes reluctant to intervene in marital disputes without strong evidence. But Cassie's case was compelling. She carried the next Gilmore heir, and the sums in question were significant enough to warrant immediate action. Late on a Thursday afternoon, Cassie received the call she had been waiting for. Judge Richardson had approved the injunction. Effective immediately, Alex's ability to access the primary Gilmore trust accounts would be suspended pending further investigation. Joint marital accounts would also be frozen to prevent unauthorized transfers. Only a modest monthly living allowance would remain available to Alex, and every penny of it would be monitored by the court. Cassie sank into her favorite armchair. When she heard the news, a flurry of relief and terror swirling inside her. This was it. The hardest part was done. The accounts were frozen. She was safe for now. But what next? Through the window, dusk fell over the estate. A new era was dawning within these old, hallowed walls. One where Cassie Gilmore refused to be the victim, refused to be overshadowed by a brazen mistress. She whispered softly to her unborn child, promising protection. She knew a confrontation was inevitable. Alex and Veronica would discover the freeze soon enough, and their wrath would be unlike anything she'd witnessed. Yet Cassie held a quiet confidence that no matter what happened next, she had done the right thing for herself and for the future of the Gilmore legacy. The next morning arrived like the calm before a thunderstorm. Cassie woke early, her nerves on edge, anticipating the fallout. Linda, always ahead of the game, had arranged for extra security at the mansion. 2 discreet guards stationed at the gate, prepared to deny entry to any uninvited visitors, specifically Veronica Brooks. The staff was on high alert, understanding that something seismic was about to happen. Mr. Jameson even insisted on personally attending to the front door, unwilling to let the mistress set foot inside again without a fight. Sure enough, by mid-morning, Alex discovered the freeze on his accounts. He tried to withdraw funds to placate Veronica's demands, only to find his card declined. Panic set in as he contacted his personal banker, who informed him that a court order had locked down the Gilmore Trust and the couple's joint accounts pending further investigation into marital misconduct. Furious Alex barged into the mansion, shouting Cassie's name. She met him in the foyer, her hands clasped protectively over her abdomen, her face radiating quiet determination. "Good morning, Alex. I assume you received the news?" He stared at her with disbelief and anger. "You actually did it! How dare you? Do you realize the mess you've created?" "It had to be done," Cassie replied calmly. "You were using our money to fund your affair. I won't allow that." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the length of the foyer like a trapped animal. "You think this solves anything?" Veronica is livid. "She's threatening to ruin both of us." Cassie's stomach knotted, but she held firm. "Let her try. We have the legal system on our side. She can't access a dime from the Gilmore accounts." A metallic clang at the main entrance made them both turn. Veronica Brooks strode in, ignoring Mr. Jameson's attempts to stop her. She wore dark sunglasses, whipped them off, and pointed an accusing finger at Cassie. "You froze the accounts. Are you insane?" Mr. Jameson attempted to intervene. "Miss Brooks." "I must insist." "It's all right, Mr. Jameson," Cassie said softly. "Let's have this conversation here and now." Alex moved toward Veronica, trying to calm her, but she pushed his hands away. "I can't access my money," she spat, glaring at Cassie. "I had bills to pay a car lease. All of it was funded by Alex. You cut me off just like that." "It's not your money," Cassie said, feeling a surprising wave of satisfaction at the simple truth. "It belongs to the Gilmore family." Veronica's eyes flashed with hatred. "Alex promised me a life. Promised me I'd be taken care of. You think I'm just going to walk away with nothing?" Linda, who had stepped in quietly, couldn't suppress a scornful laugh. "That's exactly what you're going to do, unless you want to face the legal repercussions for blackmail, embezzlement, and probably a host of other charges we can line up against you." "Shut up!" Veronica screeched, lunging forward, only to be caught by Alex, who frantically tried to restrain her. "I gave up everything for you, Alex," she yelled. "I left my job, my apartment," which was paid for by Alex using marital funds. Linda interjected. "That is called financial abuse of the joint accounts." Cassie felt a surge of sympathy for the baby, stirring in her womb, absorbing every bit of tension. She spoke firmly, ignoring the trembling in her voice. "Veronica, I suggest you leave. Any conversation you have from this point forward should be with our lawyers." Veronica's gaze whipped to Alex. "Are you really going to stand there and let her banish me? You said you loved me." Alex looked torn, helpless. He stared at Cassie, then at Veronica, then back again. "I told you not to come here," he muttered. "You've made everything worse." Disgust and heartbreak mingled in Cassie's expression. "Alex, I see you still can't decide who you want to stand by. But the choice is already made for you. You want to continue with Veronica. Then you lose access to the family money. You want to be part of our child's life. Then you cut Veronica out." The ultimatum hung in the air like a guillotine. Linda watched, arms crossed, ready to back up Cassie if things got out of control. Mr. Jameson hovered near the door, quietly summoning the newly hired security to the foyer. Veronica snapped. "I'm not going anywhere until I get my share." "You think you can humiliate me, toss me aside and leave me penniless? You're messing with the wrong woman." Cassie Gilmore. She glared at Cassie's baby bump, a twisted sneer on her lips. "Don't think I won't do what I have to do." Security guards materialized, stepping forward to flank Veronica. She spun on them with a venomous look, but they were calm and trained to remain professional. "Ms. Brooks, one guard said you need to leave now." She pivoted back to Alex, eyes wild. Help me. Tell them I'm allowed here." Alex exhaled raggedly, looking at Cassie with desperation. But Cassie just shook her head. Her eyes were resolute. She saw the truth in Alex's expression. He wasn't brave enough to defy Veronica, nor was he courageous enough to do right by his wife. He was a spineless man, torn between guilt and lust, stuck in a no-man's land of his own making. When he didn't speak, Veronica let out a trembling exhale. The security guards took her gently by the arms. She allowed herself to be led away, but not without spitting one final threat at Cassie. "I'm not done. You'll see. I'll ruin all of you." The echo of her heels on the marble floor faded, and then she was gone. Cassie felt a rush of relief and heartbreak all at once. She clutched at her belly, breathing deeply, conscious that stress could harm the baby. Linda was instantly by her side, steadying her. Alex remained standing in the foyer, looking as though he'd been struck by lightning. Without glancing at him, Cassie whispered, "You need to leave too, Alex. I can't have you living here if you're still entangled with her." He flinched. "Cassie, where would I go?" She swallowed tears, threatening to rise. "That's not my concern. I'll speak to Stevenson. He'll arrange a temporary allowance for you, enough to cover a hotel room or rental. But until you figure out where your loyalty lies, I don't want you under this roof." His eyes glistened with unshed tears. Perhaps he was finally realizing the gravity of his actions. "I never wanted this, I swear." Cassie nodded, her voice trembling with sadness. "Yet here we are. Pack what you need and go." "I have to think about our child's well-being." For a moment, it looked like Alex might argue. Then his shoulders sagged, and he turned to climb the stairs. Cassie and Linda heard him reach the second-floor landing, the sound of closet doors opening and suitcases being pulled out. Neither woman spoke. They both knew this was the only choice left. In less than an hour, Alex reappeared with 2 suitcases. He glanced at Cassie, who stood by the parlor entrance, still cradling her belly. Their eyes met, and there was a flicker of the love they'd once shared. But it was drowned out by layers of betrayal pain and the chasm that had grown between them. As Alex walked out the front door, Mr. Jameson closed it gently behind him. Silence fell over the mansion's grand foyer. Cassie inhaled, trying to steady her swirling emotions. She pressed a palm over her baby bump. "I did what I had to," she whispered. Linda placed a comforting hand on Cassie's shoulder. In a single day, Cassie had banished both her husband and his mistress from the mansion. The accounts were frozen. The Gilmore dynasty was protected. But the emotional toll was immense, and Cassie knew the war was not over. Veronica's threat hung in the air, and Alex's next move remained unknown. Yet for the first time since discovering the affair, Cassie felt a sense of empowerment. She was no longer a victim waiting in the shadows. She was a mother-to-be who had just defended her child's legacy with every ounce of strength she possessed. In the days that followed the dramatic eviction, Cassie Gilmore faced a whirlpool of emotions, legal proceedings and public scrutiny. Society circles buzzed with gossip about Alex's abrupt departure from the mansion, about the rumored mistress, and about Cassie's pregnancy. Headlines screamed, "Gilmore scandal. Mistress invades mansion. Wife fights back." Paparazzi camped outside the estate gates, hoping to snap a shot of Cassie or glean details from departing staff. Inside the mansion, Cassie operated like a fortress commander. Linda helped enforce the new security measures, ensuring the staff's loyalty. They updated passcodes for the front gate, installed additional cameras, and changed alarm codes for the house. Cassie wanted no further surprises from Veronica or from Alex. On the legal front, William Stevenson proceeded with the formal steps to protect the Gilmore inheritance. While Cassie remained the rightful spouse, an investigation into Alex's misconduct would determine how the marital assets would be divided if a divorce became inevitable. For Cassie, pregnancy hormones and stress formed a precarious mix. Yet she found solace in the occasional flutters of the baby's kicks. She kept her prenatal appointments and maintained a strict routine of meditation and healthy meals, determined to shield her child from the toxicity swirling around them. Late at night, she read aloud from classic children's books while rocking on a glider in the half-finished nursery. Each page turned was a promise of a better future despite the chaos. Amid the tension, an unexpected messenger arrived. One afternoon, Linda found a small envelope slipped under the mansion gate. The handwriting was hurried. It bore no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. Cassie, I have vital information. Meet me at the Arbor Cafe tomorrow at noon. V. Linda immediately suspected a trap. Veronica Brooks was not one to wave a white flag. She smelled blackmail or another manipulative scheme. Cassie considered ignoring it, but her curiosity was piqued. What could Veronica possibly want now? If it was a threat, better to face it and evaluate her leverage. With reluctance, Cassie agreed to go, but not without precautions. She had 2 discreet bodyguards in plain clothes wait at a nearby table, while Linda watched from a corner seat. The Arbor Cafe was a cozy spot in the city's historic district, known for its vine-covered walls and wrought-iron tables under twinkling lights. When Cassie arrived, Veronica was already seated, sunglasses perched on her head, a latte half-finished on the table. She looked more subdued than usual, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. Cassie hesitated, feeling a flicker of sympathy for the woman who had invaded her life. Then she remembered the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the vicious threats. Veronica gestured to the empty seat. Please, sit. Cassie did so, carefully placing her purse on her lap. She stayed silent, waiting for Veronica to speak first. After a tense moment, Veronica sighed, her voice unsteady. I'm not here to fight, Cassie. I'm here to tell you something. Important. Cassie arched an eyebrow. Go on. Veronica glanced around, her gaze landing on Linda in the corner. Linda stared back, unflinching. Veronica pursed her lips. I've spent the last few days trying to salvage my life. I never expected you to freeze all the accounts. That was the point, Cassie replied coldly. Veronica gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, well, mission accomplished. I'm broke now. I had to sell half my clothes just to afford my hotel bill. She tapped the table absently. But this meeting isn't about money. It's about Alex. Cassie's pulse jumped. What about him? Veronica removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. He lied to you. But he also lied to me. He never told me the full story about the Gilmore finances, about the baby, about everything. He made promises he couldn't keep. And now I'm the one facing ruin, while he's found himself another option. A chill crept through Cassie. Another option. Veronica nodded grimly. He's turned to an old flame, apparently. He's trying to find a place to stay with someone named Marisa in the Hamptons. She's some rich divorcee who still pines for him, or so he says. Cassie clenched her jaw. It hurt to realize Alex had already moved on from both of them, but she forced herself to remain composed. Why are you telling me this? Veronica's voice trembled with anger. Because I want you to know he's not just a cheater, he's an opportunist. You freeze his accounts and he runs to the next wealthy woman who might fund his lifestyle. I was a pawn, just as you were. Cassie shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She wrestled with conflicting emotions. Fury at Alex for continuing his pattern of betrayal. Reluctant empathy for Veronica's sense of betrayal and confusion about whether any of this made a difference. So what do you hope to achieve by telling me? Veronica sighed. Closure, maybe? A chance to rid myself of this anger. I have no illusions that you'll forgive me. But I've learned something else too. Something about the Gilmore finances that might help you in the long run. Cassie felt her heart skip. I'm listening. Veronica leaned forward, lowering her voice. Alex mentioned once that if things got too hot, he could cash out an offshore account. In my name, transfer the money, quickly vanish, and leave you none the wiser. He even boasted about forging your signature if needed to finalize transactions. I brushed it off at the time, but now I realize he might actually do it. A surge of cold washed over Cassie. That's serious. You have proof Veronica slid a small USB drive across the table, recordings of phone conversations, text messages. He got sloppy. I was planning to use these to blackmail him, but after everything, I'd rather see him pay for his lies. She hesitated, looking away. Besides, I never wanted to be the villain who destroyed you. I just wanted a better life. I made a mistake. I've paid dearly for it. Cassie stared at the USB drive, 1,000 thoughts whirling. Alex forging her signature, emptying accounts, running away. Her baby would be left with nothing, and the Gilmore empire could collapse in scandal. This evidence might be the final nail in Alex's coffin in court. It also might be the leverage Cassie needed to ensure her child's future was secure. She exhaled shakily. Thank you, she said, softening just a fraction. But don't mistake this for forgiveness. You hurt me deeply. Veronica nodded, tears brimming. I know. I've come to realize that karma hits hard. Just take this information and protect yourself and your child. That's all I have left to say. Cassie clasped the USB drive, her mind still reeling. You should find a way to restart your life, Veronica, away from all this. If you truly regret what you did, maybe you'll find redemption somewhere. Veronica's lips curved in a sad smile. I don't expect redemption, but I appreciate the sentiment. She rose from her chair, fumbling for her sunglasses, as though needing them to hide the tears she refused to let fall. Goodbye, Cassie. I hope your child never has to know any of this. Then she was gone, leaving Cassie with a swirl of questions and a trove of incriminating evidence that could reshape everything. Linda approached, placing a steady hand on Cassie's shoulder. Are you okay? Cassie shook her head, tears in her eyes. I think so. But this changes everything. Linda gently guided Cassie to her feet. Let's go home. We'll sort it out. That night, Cassie and Linda reviewed the files on the USB drive in the privacy of Cassie's study. They heard Alex's voice recorded phone calls in which he casually discussed forging Cassie's signature, opening new accounts in Veronica's name, and funneling money away from the Gilmore empire. It was sickening yet undeniably powerful evidence. Cassie felt simultaneously devastated and vindicated her husband was beyond redemption. With these recordings, Cassie could ensure Alex never accessed the trust again. She could push for a strong settlement if they proceeded to divorce, guaranteeing her baby's financial future. And if Alex tried to defy the court orders, she could press criminal charges. The weight of that power both frightened and relieved her. Late into the night, Cassie and Linda compiled all the evidence to deliver to William Stevenson. Cassie felt an odd sense of clarity. She had started this war to shield herself and her child from Veronica's greed, but now she realized the real threat had always been Alex. Perhaps he had once loved her, but now he was nothing more than a self-serving con man. She squared her shoulders and set her jaw. This ends now. Within days of receiving the incriminating USB, Cassie and William Stevenson acted swiftly. The evidence of Alex's schemes, recorded calls, forged signature plans, and money laundering was presented to the court and the Gilmore family board. The reaction was immediate. Alex was stripped of all authority over the family trust and faced potential criminal charges. Once the Gilmore golden boy, Alex, now found himself disgraced, exiled by both family and public opinion. The media had a field day. Headlines painted him as a traitor to his legacy while society turned its back on him. His father, furious and embarrassed, threatened to disown him completely. Meanwhile, Cassie proceeded with divorce filings, claiming full custody of their unborn child and requesting spousal and child support. The Gilmore board backed her, fully pledging to create a new trust to secure the baby's future independent of Alex. Despite the ongoing legal battles, Cassie focused on her pregnancy. The baby's health stabilized, and she followed every doctor's order to protect her mental and physical well-being. Her days were filled with gentle routines, meditation, checkups, nursery planning, and nights were spent rocking in a chair reading to her unborn daughter. Linda remained by her side, a constant support in this final stretch. As Alex's world crumbled, he desperately tried to reach Cassie, begging, accusing, then pleading again. She ignored every call. Any communication went through lawyers. Rumors spread that he sought refuge with a wealthy ex in the Hamptons, but that door closed quickly once his scandals reached her. Eventually, even Veronica turned her back on him, leaving Alex drifting between hotels, broke, bitter and isolated. Veronica, meanwhile, disappeared quietly. After her final meeting with Cassie, she seemed to accept defeat. Word spread that she had taken a modest job in another state, far from the world of designer clothes and scandal. While she had caused pain, her final act, handing over the USB, played a key role in preserving the Gilmore child's future. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. Then one crisp autumn morning, Cassie went into labor. Linda rushed her to a private hospital, where Cassie delivered a healthy baby girl. Tears streamed down her face as she held her daughter for the first time, overwhelmed by love, relief, and triumph. Everything she had endured, the betrayal, humiliation, and legal warfare, had led to this moment. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere transformed. What was once a battlefield of secrets now became a sanctuary. The staff, once filled with whispers and tension, now doted on the newborn. Cassie walked through the halls, holding her daughter, feeling strength she never knew she had. Her child's eyes mirrored a new future, one filled with truth, peace, and resilience. The Gilmore board members, initially skeptical of Cassie, now respected her deeply. She had not only protected the family's wealth, but had also upheld its integrity far better than Alex ever had. She was no longer seen as just the wife she was, the new matriarch commanding both admiration and authority. Alex, meanwhile, faded from the spotlight. His attempts to delay court proceedings failed. The evidence was too strong. He faced mounting debts, lawsuits, and a tarnished reputation. Stevenson pushed the case forward, ensuring Alex would have limited contact and no financial access unless approved by the court. Cassie's life settled into a new rhythm. She balanced motherhood with quiet strength, no longer consumed by past wounds. When memories of betrayal surfaced, she looked into her daughter's eyes and found clarity. She had done everything for this child. She had protected what mattered most. One rainy afternoon, as her daughter napped peacefully in the nursery, Cassie reflected on the journey. The headline that once sounded like a tabloid fantasy, Mistress took her spot at the mansion until the pregnant wife froze. All the accounts was her truth, and in that truth she had found justice, peace, and power. Karma had taken its course, not through revenge, but through quiet determination, legal action, and maternal devotion. The mansion now stood as a symbol of resilience, not scandal. And in that home, a new legacy had begun, one that Cassie would shape with wisdom, love, and unwavering strength. And so ends the tumultuous saga of betrayal, resilience, and ultimate justice within the Gilmore mansion. From the moment the brazen mistress strutted into the climactic showdown, when the pregnant wife froze every account this story has shown us, that sometimes real power lies not in money or social status, but in the unyielding strength of a woman protecting her child and her legacy. The echoes of Alex's downfall ring through the ornate hallways, but in the nursery, a new beginning blossoms, proof that love, determination, and a dash of legal savvy can conquer even the most cunning schemes. If you've been captivated by this dramatic tale of family secrets, high-stakes betrayal, and hard-earned redemption, be sure to like this video, share it with others who love a juicy real-life twist, and subscribe to this channel. Your support fuels more riveting stories, each exploring the depths of human emotion and the triumph of hope over adversity. The grand chandeliers sparkled across the marbled floor of the Highclere estate, illuminating the most talked-about wedding of the year. Maxwell Harrington, heir to the Harrington financial fortune, stood at the altar in an impeccably tailored suit that cost more than some people's cars. Across from him stood Clarissa Townsend, radiant in a custom-made gown that was rumored to be worth $500,000. Everyone in attendance held their breath as a hush fell over the crowd. This was the moment they had waited for. Then, an audible gasp. Maxwell fumbled the ring. As it clattered to the floor, he turned around only to see his pregnant wife in tears. Maxwell Harrington wasn't always a millionaire with a polished exterior. Born in a modest neighborhood in Chicago, he learned early on that grit and ambition could be his ticket out of poverty. He studied relentlessly, eventually earning a scholarship to Yale. There he befriended the likes of Andrew Carmichael, the son of a shipping magnate who introduced Maxwell to the upper echelons of society. During his postgraduate years, Maxwell's knack for hedge fund investments exploded his personal wealth. By the time he turned 29, he had made his first $1 million, and Harrington Financial was on the rise. But behind every success story lurked personal struggles. Despite his wealth and supposed charm, Maxwell always felt he had to prove himself to the old money circles that sneered at him from behind crystal wine glasses. 6 months ago, after finalizing a particularly successful deal in Manhattan, Maxwell met Clarissa Townsend at a fundraiser gala at the Waldorf Astoria. Clarissa's father, Sterling Townsend, was legendary in real estate circles for building entire city blocks in record time, eager to align their families and fortune. Sterling introduced Clarissa to Maxwell, and a whirlwind courtship began. Little did Clarissa know Maxwell harbored secrets and people he left behind, including a woman named Georgina Coleman. Georgina Coleman's name had long vanished from Maxwell's official story, but those who truly knew him, like his best friend Andrew, knew that Georgina was no mere fling. She had been Maxwell's first true love back at Yale. Their chemistry was explosive, their fights and reconciliations fueled by their shared hunger for success and the desire to leave their past behind. When Georgina discovered she was pregnant, Maxwell's life took a sudden turn. He was close to securing a major investment opportunity, overshadowed by a wealthy competitor who tried to smear his name. Feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders, Maxwell didn't handle the pregnancy news with grace. He and Georgina fought. Horrible words were exchanged, hurt and betrayed. Georgina left for London, where her sister lived. Maxwell told himself he wasn't ready for fatherhood, especially with all that business pressure. He reasoned that Georgina deserved better than his half-hearted commitment and the anxieties he carried. But that wasn't all. Rather than step up, Maxwell made an arrangement with Georgina's mother to provide financial support. Yet the emotional connection remained severed. He buried all thoughts of Georgina until Clarissa Townsend waltzed into his life and made him believe he could craft a perfect, polished new beginning. The engagement of Clarissa Townsend and Maxwell Harrington became a media sensation. Reputable outlets, such as Bloomberg, the New York Times, and even Vogue, covered their story. She was the privileged daughter of a real estate mogul, and he was the self-made millionaire. They embodied everything high society loved, a rags-to-riches story fused with inherited wealth, ensuring mutual benefit in business and social prestige. Their engagement party at the Townsend family's Southampton estate was an extravaganza filled with celebrities, CEOs, and notable figures like Beatrice Carmichael, the prominent wedding planner, who boasted clients like Hollywood actors and European royalty. The toasts were lavish. The wine was imported from a 200-year-old French vineyard, and the party ended with fireworks over the Atlantic Ocean. Outwardly, Maxwell seemed like he was on top of the world, smiling for cameras alongside Clarissa, cherishing every spotlight. Yet, hidden beneath the tailored suits and refined manners, he was plagued by guilt. Images of Georgina's tear-streaked face flashed in his mind. He tried to brush them away, focusing on the future that lay ahead. A future that would be unstoppable if he could just maintain the perfect facade. But fate has a way of unraveling even the best-laid plans. One crisp morning, Maxwell's doorman at his Park Avenue penthouse announced a surprising visitor, Georgina Coleman. Her face was pale, her eyes bruised by fatigue, yet her presence radiated a calm intensity. Maxwell's heart thundered in his chest. He had received fleeting updates that Georgina relocated from London back to the States, but never once expected her to stand at his doorstep. He ushered her inside, offering her a seat on a velvet sofa and a glass of water. Georgina explained that she had tried to rebuild her life working as an events coordinator in London and later in Los Angeles. She kept the pregnancy hidden from almost everyone in her circle besides her own mother. Now she was back to settle things. As she lifted her shirt slightly, Maxwell's eyes confirmed what he had only suspected, but never truly faced. She was pregnant with his child. The room spun. Emotions collided, fear, excitement, regret, and a strange sense of relief. Georgina asked the question. Maxwell dreaded. What happens now? He had no immediate answer. Silence hung in the opulent living room, like a thundercloud poised to unleash a storm, heralding the chaos about to befall all their lives. Maxwell's immediate reaction was to protect Clarissa and the engagement from scandal. After all, their families were set to merge fortunes. Business deals hinged on the public's perception of their union. Even a whiff of impropriety could send investors and society tongues wagging. But he couldn't just ignore Georgina's predicament. Not anymore. She was carrying his child. He proposed financial arrangements, But Georgina refused to be relegated to a secret once again. Her determination cut him like a knife. "I can't believe you think money fixes everything," she snapped, her voice shaking. "This isn't about blackmail. It's about doing what's right for our child." Maxwell felt cornered. Did he break off the engagement with Clarissa, risking his entire standing in high society, and possibly losing the strategic alliance with the Townsend family? Or did he keep Georgina hidden, continuing to lie and hoping it would all magically resolve? Neither path seemed survivable. Yet time offered no mercy. Georgina's belly was growing by the day. Fate took a darker turn when Clarissa's father, Sterling Townsend, unwittingly pressured Maxwell about a prenuptial agreement that would seal their finances together. The walls were closing in, and Maxwell found himself on a collision course with disaster. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Maxwell juggled his carefully managed life like a high-wire circus act. He'd spend mornings finalizing last-minute business deals with Harrington Financial's board, ensuring the synergy with Townsend Realty soared after the wedding. Afternoons were swallowed by wedding preparations with Clarissa outfit fittings, guest lists, menu tastings. Evenings, however, brought secret visits to Georgina's modest apartment in Chelsea, where he tried to offer whatever emotional support he could muster, and medical bills for her prenatal checkups. Clarissa, always attuned to Maxwell's moods, sensed an odd distance in him. She chalked it up to wedding stress, but her suspicions were stoked by the occasional phone call that Maxwell refused to answer in her presence. She had once caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar number, Georgina's, and felt a sting of jealousy. But Clarissa was more concerned with appearing perfect to her parents than prying into Maxwell's affairs. Sterling Townsend's approval had always been her driving force, and she was taught to never question a man whose net worth soared in the millions. Little did Clarissa know, each passing day brought Maxwell closer to the precipice. The foundation of their love was built on illusions and half-truths, on borrowed time that threatened to shatter. Clarissa's bridesmaid and lifelong friend, Samantha Diaz, had a keen eye for details. Working as a journalist at a local New York station had sharpened her instincts. Samantha noticed Maxwell's absent stares and the slight tremor in his hand when he picked up certain calls. During a wedding rehearsal at St. James Cathedral, she caught Maxwell sneaking out to take a phone call. She overheard fragments of a heated conversation, mentions of doctor's appointments, still waiting. "And tell me what you need." Samantha's gut twisted. Something wasn't right. She decided to investigate discreetly. After all, she owed it to her friend Clarissa to ensure the marriage was on solid ground. She took the number she had spotted on Maxwell's phone during a previous incident and did a reverse lookup, discovering it belonged to Georgina Coleman. A few deeper database searches uncovered an interesting trail. Georgina had once been Maxwell's girlfriend, rumored to have left for London, and returned recently under hushed circumstances. Samantha felt a flood of apprehension. Could this all just be a last-minute fling? Or was it something more insidious? Something that would devastate Clarissa if revealed. Determined to unearth the truth, Samantha made a quiet vow. She'd find Georgina and get answers. Meanwhile, Georgina struggled with her own inner turmoil. She despised the idea of confronting Clarissa on the eve of her wedding, but Maxwell's refusal to openly address the situation filled her with guilt and frustration. She had spoken with her sister Annabel, who advised her to handle things carefully, suggesting legal counsel or at least a structured negotiation. But Georgina was guided less by legalities and more by moral necessity. She wanted her child to grow up without secrets, to have a father who openly claimed him or her, rather than existing as a hush-hush arrangement. Late one night, she penned a letter addressed to Clarissa Townsend. It outlined the truth, everything from her relationship with Maxwell, the pregnancy and her desire for a proper resolution. Georgina sealed it in a crisp envelope, but hesitated. Was she truly willing to detonate a bomb under Maxwell's fairy tale wedding? If there was another route, she would have taken it, but Maxwell's evasiveness left her feeling like an afterthought. As her due date inched closer, Georgina's resolve solidified. She mailed the letter, certain it would arrive in Clarissa's hands within days. Deep down, Georgina prayed that honesty might pave a better path forward, even if it meant heartbreak. The Harrington-Townsend wedding was scheduled to take place at the Highclere estate in upstate New York, rumored to cost over $1 million just for the event rental. Florists were flown in from Paris. The catering was by a Michelin-starred chef from Tuscany, and the guest list boasted over 500 VIPs. It was a spectacle that only the wealthiest circles could orchestrate, and all eyes were on this union. Beatrice Carmichael, the wedding planner, navigated every detail with meticulous care. The color palettes were selected, the floral arches erected, and the crystal chandeliers placed in the grand ballroom. She had coordinated with the Townsend family's staff for months, and everything was on schedule except for the intangible tension in the air. The bride's face looked wan with worry. The groom's eyes darted around anxiously, and the staff whispered about uninvited guests. As the wedding day approached, newspapers predicted the event of the season. The public only saw the grandeur, no one suspected the sizzling drama quietly brewing. But those intimately involved, especially Maxwell, Clarissa, Georgina, and Samantha, could feel the storm. Whether it would stay under wraps or explode publicly remained to be seen, and the clock was ticking toward the altar. On the night before the wedding, Sterling Townsend hosted an intimate rehearsal dinner at his Manhattan penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, while a string quartet played soft melodies. Clarissa, dressed in an elegant blue gown, made rounds greeting relatives and close friends. Maxwell attempted to maintain poise, but he was clearly on edge. During the dinner toasts, Andrew Carmichael tried to lighten the mood with a humorous story about Maxwell's college days. Everyone laughed except Maxwell, who stared at his phone expecting some last-minute crisis. Samantha Diaz watched him from the corner of her eye, certain he was hiding something. She had tried calling the mysterious Georgina Coleman, but the call went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, Clarissa sipped her champagne and forced a radiant smile, her gut telling her something was off, though she couldn't pinpoint what. A hush fell over the room when Sterling stood to make his toast. "Tomorrow," he boomed, "my daughter marries the man who will join our families in both love and business. May this be a union we celebrate for decades to come." Applause erupted. Maxwell swallowed hard, knowing that this might be the last peaceful moment before the avalanche of truth. That night, Maxwell couldn't sleep. Every tick of the grandfather clock in the guest suite hammered in his head like a judge's gavel. At 2:00 a.m., he slipped out of bed and crept into the penthouse's study, a grand room filled with leather-bound books and a marble fireplace. There he called Georgina. To his surprise, she answered. "Don't do anything rash tomorrow," he pleaded, his voice trembling. "I'll figure this out, I promise." Georgina was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke her words, laced with resignation. "I sent a letter to Clarissa. She deserves the truth." Maxwell's stomach lurched. "What do you mean you sent a letter?" "Did she get it?" "I'm not sure. I sent it days ago, so it might have arrived by now." Georgina answered quietly. "If you want to do the right thing, you'll tell her yourself before she reads it from me." The call ended, leaving Maxwell gripping the phone in despair. Every moral fiber told him he should confess to Clarissa immediately. But with mere hours until the wedding, how could he sabotage everything? He retreated to his room, consumed by dread, uncertain whether Georgina's letter would detonate the final blow. The next morning, the Highclere estate was a hive of activity. Early rays of sun streamed through sprawling gardens, catching glints of dew on rose petals. Florists worked double time, assembling the arches, while caterers prepared exotic dishes in the estate's industrial kitchen. Photographers and videographers buzzed around, capturing every detail of the grand setting. Clarissa woke up feeling unusually uneasy, her heart fluttering with doubt. She found a sealed envelope on the breakfast tray that had been delivered to her bridal suite. The estate staff said it had arrived that morning. Before she could open it, Samantha Diaz burst in, breathless. She had spent the early dawn searching for more information on Georgina. She had discovered that Georgina was indeed pregnant, and an old friend had confirmed Maxwell was likely the father. "I need to talk to you," Samantha said, her voice urgent. Clarissa, her nerves already on edge, signaled for Samantha to continue. But before a single word was spoken, the hairstylist and makeup artist arrived to prepare the bride. With a house full of staff, Samantha didn't dare speak too openly. Clarissa's hands shook as she placed the unopened envelope on the vanity, its contents beckoning like a ticking time bomb. Georgina stood outside the Highclere estate's wrought iron gates. Her shoulders squared, a mixture of trepidation and resolve coursing through her. She wore a loose-fitting floral dress that tried its best to hide her baby bump, though it was quite obvious by now. She could have stayed away, but something compelled her to bear witness to the outcome of her letter, or to confront Maxwell if he hadn't come clean yet. Security halted her at the entrance. She explained she needed to see the groom, that she was on the list. The guards, uncertain, checked their roster and found no Georgina Coleman. Determined not to be turned away, Georgina held up a text from Maxwell which showed earlier conversations about meeting up. Reluctantly, one guard used his walkie-talkie to radio for confirmation. Moments later, Andrew Carmichael appeared in a crisp suit, recognized Georgina, and with a tense nod told security she was with him. Georgina's heart pounded as she walked through the estate's immaculate gardens. She looked up at the towering building and the lavish decor, mindful that inside a bride was getting ready to walk down the aisle, while unaware of the secret that might shatter her life. With the wedding ceremony only hours away, Samantha Diaz sensed time was running out. She found a quiet corner near Clarissa's suite to examine the letter Clarissa had left unopened on the vanity. Clarissa had been whisked away for final dress alterations, leaving Samantha alone with the mysterious envelope. The handwriting was elegant, yet shaky, addressed to Clarissa Townsend. Her journalistic instincts took over. She tore open the envelope carefully and quickly scanned the letter. It was from Georgina, detailing her relationship with Maxwell, the pregnancy, and her desire for an honest resolution. Samantha's eyes widened. The pages read like a confession of love, betrayal, and heartbreak, evidence that Maxwell had hidden an entire life from Clarissa. A surge of protective fury and dread coursed through Samantha. She knew she had to tell Clarissa immediately. The bride deserved to know the truth before saying her vows. But as Samantha stepped into the hallway to find Clarissa, she collided with Maxwell himself. He spotted the letter in her hand and froze, his face etched with panic. "Where did you get that?" he demanded, voice hoarse. Samantha tightened her grip, realizing that in her hands she held the power to unravel this entire wedding. Maxwell's eyes darted from Samantha's face to the letter in her trembling hand. He knew exactly what it contained. every damning truth he had failed to confess to Clarissa. The color drained from his face. "Please, Samantha," he said, voice urgent but subdued. "This isn't how it looks. I wanted to tell Clarissa, I really did. But so much was on the line." Samantha stared at him with a mix of pity and anger. She had always viewed Maxwell with skepticism, but never imagined something this grave. "You've betrayed her," she hissed. "She needs to know now before she walks down that aisle." A flash of helplessness passed through Maxwell's eyes. "I'm going to tell her," he promised. "Let me do it in my own way." Her instincts told her not to trust him, but looking into Maxwell's anguished face, Samantha made a choice. She handed him the letter. "You tell her, or I will," she warned. Maxwell nodded, gripping the letter like it was a lifeline in a storm. He turned to leave, shoulders bowed under the weight of impending doom. Samantha watched him vanish down the corridor, feeling a hollow ache. She prayed Clarissa's heart would survive the truth. Maxwell rushed to the bridal suite, where Clarissa was mid-fitting. The seamstresses fussed over the layers of imported lace and pearls, pinning fabric here and there, trying to ensure the gown fit to perfection. Clarissa's gaze lifted when Maxwell entered. Immediately, she noticed his ashen complexion and the letter clutched in his hand. "Everyone out," Maxwell said firmly, though his voice cracked with tension. The seamstresses hesitated, but Clarissa nodded, and they filed out, leaving the couple alone in the sunlit room. Clarissa folded her arms, heart pounding, as she met Maxwell's eyes in the mirrored reflection. "What's this about?" she asked, noticing the letter. Maxwell approached her slowly. For a moment he couldn't speak, his throat constricted by guilt. He extended the letter. "Read this?" he whispered. She took the paper and scanned it, her expression shifting from confusion to shock to profound hurt. Tears welled in her eyes as she read the final lines about Georgina's pregnancy. Her hands began to shake, and she nearly dropped the letter. How could you?" she choked out. Clarissa's pristine wedding gown, so full of hope, now felt suffocating. Maxwell stepped closer, desperate to console her, but she recoiled, unleashing a sob that echoed throughout the suite. Clarissa crumpled onto a chaise lounge, tears streaming down her meticulously made-up face. She stared at Maxwell as though he were a stranger. Outside, she could hear the hustle of wedding staff, the distant chatter of arriving guests, oblivious to the turmoil within these walls. Why, she gasped, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" Maxwell dropped to his knees beside her. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of losing you. Afraid of what your father would do. And I thought Georgina. I thought we had ended. But then she came back pregnant, and I just didn't know how to handle it." Clarissa let out a bitter laugh that turned into a sob. "You should have told me the moment you found out I'm not some fragile doll. I could have handled the truth. But this deception..." She shook her head, feeling as if the ground beneath her had collapsed. Every dream Clarissa had spun walking down the aisle in her custom gown, forging a power couple with Maxwell, merging fortunes to create a legacy, had crumbled. Now she faced the humiliating possibility of calling off the wedding in front of hundreds of guests and the entire world's media. Moments after Clarissa's breakdown, Sterling Townsend barreled into the bridal suite. His imposing figure took in the scene, his daughter in tears, Maxwell on his knees, and the letter on the floor. He snatched it up, glancing over the incriminating paragraphs with a darkening scowl. "You lying son of a..." He couldn't even finish. His rage was palpable. He tossed the letter onto a nearby table, his fists clenched. You dare bring shame to my family. On my daughter's wedding day." Maxwell tried to speak, but Sterling's glare cut him off. The older man turned to Clarissa, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "My dear, we can stop this. No one will judge you if we call it off. Our lawyers will see to the details." Fresh tears flooded Clarissa's eyes. She looked at Maxwell, heart tearing in two. The betrayal was immense, but so was their love, if what they had was even love at all. Confusion and heartbreak churned inside her. Sterling turned back to Maxwell. "Pack up your things. Get off my estate," he spat. "Consider your business alliance with Townsend Realty permanently severed." Maxwell's face drained of color. His entire world was falling apart, and the moment of reckoning had arrived. Amidst the chaos, time surged forward. Guests began to fill the ornate garden seats, oblivious to the drama unfolding inside. A hush of anticipation settled among the crowd, including global CEOs, society influencers, and even a few celebrities who had flown in just for the spectacle. Beatrice Carmichael, frantically checking the timeline, noticed the bride was not descending to the aisle. She sent her assistants racing back and forth to find out what was causing the delay. The string quartet repeated the prelude for the third time, an uneasy tension starting to ripple through the assembled guests. Meanwhile, Andrew Carmichael was outside, pacing near the estate's entrance. He had let Georgina in earlier, and she was now somewhere in the mansion, possibly looking for Maxwell. Andrew's own nerves were frayed. He understood Maxwell had made a colossal mistake, but he also feared for Georgina's emotional well-being. Finally, Sterling Townsend appeared at the top of the garden steps. He raised his hand to pause the music, commanding everyone's attention. Clearing his throat, he prepared to address the puzzled crowd, torn between saving his daughter's dignity and publicly humiliating Maxwell. The wedding that everyone had awaited with delight was about to face its most dramatic moment. Inside the grand foyer, Clarissa had locked herself in a small alcove, away from prying eyes. The tears had dried, replaced by a hollowness she couldn't name. Maxwell stood outside the door, asking her to let him explain. "Please, Clarissa, let me talk to you," he begged, leaning against the doorframe. At last, she opened the door a crack. Meeting his eyes, the gown rustled around her feet like a fallen cloud. "Why should I trust anything you say now?" she asked, her voice shaking. Maxwell swallowed hard. "Because I love you. Yes, I made a terrible mistake, one I didn't know how to fix. But the one truth in all of this is that I do love you." She gazed at him, her mind racing. Could she salvage this? Could their future weather such a betrayal? She thought of Georgina, the unborn child, and the scandal waiting outside. Glancing at the reflection of herself in a gilded mirror, Clarissa remembered who she was, a woman of dignity, not a pawn in a business deal. Finally, she stepped back. "Bring her here. I need to see Georgina face to face. If this wedding is going to happen at all, it has to happen with complete honesty." Maxwell moved swiftly, searching the estate's corridors, until he found Georgina. She was standing near a gilded portrait of the estate's original owners, looking lost and out of place among the finery. The moment she saw Maxwell, her expression hardened, tears threatening to spill down her cheeks. "Clarissa wants to speak with you," Maxwell said gently, though his nerves were on edge. Georgina hesitated. Part of her wanted to run. The weight of confronting the bride face to face felt overwhelming. Yet a deeper part of her, the part that longed for honesty and clarity, nodded. She followed Maxwell down a corridor until they reached the small alcove where Clarissa waited. When Georgina entered, Clarissa's gaze swept over her swollen belly and trembling hands. For a moment, no words were exchanged. The tension was thick heartbreak, a tangible presence in the air. Finally, Clarissa mustered the courage to speak. I read your letter, she said, voice quivering. I needed to see you to know this was real. It's real, Georgina whispered, tears filling her eyes. I never wanted to destroy your happiness. I'm carrying his child, and I deserve acknowledgement. Clarissa's lip trembled. In that moment, she saw Georgina not as a villain, but as a woman trapped by circumstance, just like her. Clarissa invited Georgina to sit on a plush ottoman near a tall window that overlooked the estate's sprawling gardens. The bride-to-be stood beside the window wedding gown, shimmering in the soft light, a stark contrast to Georgina's simple floral dress. Maxwell remained a few feet away, uncertainty etched into his face. "What do you want from us?" Clarissa asked quietly, forcing herself to remain composed. Georgina looked down at her hands. "I want Maxwell to be a father to our child. Beyond that, I'm not here to extort money or force him into anything, but I refuse to let my baby be a secret." Clarissa closed her eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. "You have every right. And Maxwell, he shouldn't have lied. To either of us." She cast a piercing glance at him, her pain palpable. "You're supposed to be my husband in 20 minutes, yet I know nothing about the biggest part of your past. How can I marry you like this?" Maxwell stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. I will do whatever it takes to make this right. I'm ready to stand by Georgina as the father of our child. But I also love you, Clarissa. I can't lose you. It was a crossroads moment that would determine all their futures. Just as the three wrestled with their emotions, a burst of voices emanated from the hallway. Sterling Townsend stormed in with Andrew Carmichael at his side. The older man's face was flushed with anger, tempered only by the presence of Clarissa and Georgina in the same room. He halted abruptly, taking in the sight of both women and a visibly distraught Maxwell. "Clarissa Sterling," said his tone fatherly, yet firm. "Our guests are waiting. The entire business community is buzzing about this wedding. I can only stall them for so long. Either we proceed or we end it. Now." Clarissa looked at her father, lips parted, as she tried to form words. Her eyes flickered to Maxwell, then to Georgina, searching for some clarity, some sign. But all she felt was an overwhelming swirl of heartbreak and confusion. Sterling's voice softened just a fraction. "Sweetheart, if you want to call it off, I'll support that decision. But don't leave hundreds of guests waiting in ignorance. Make a choice." Andrew stepped forward, glancing at Maxwell with a mix of sympathy and reproach. "Maxwell, you need to come clean to everyone or walk away. You can't hide this anymore." Amid the swirl of conflict, Clarissa inhaled deeply, steeling herself for a decision that could change their lives forever. Outside, the elegant string quartet had stopped playing. Guests whispered in confusion, glancing at the vacant altar draped in white roses. The officiant checked his watch for what felt like the 10th time. Beatrice Carmichael wrung her hands anxiously, receiving conflicting updates from staff. Suddenly, Clarissa Townsend appeared at the top of the aisle. But she wasn't alone. She was flanked by Maxwell on one side and Georgina on the other. Their unexpected entrance jolted the crowd into silence. Sterling stood off to the side, grim-faced, while Samantha Diaz watched with bated breath, holding back tears of her own. Clarissa cleared her throat, her voice carrying across the garden. "I apologize for the delay, everyone. We have a development that needs to be addressed before any vows are exchanged." An uneasy murmur spread through the guests. Photographers snapped furiously, eager to capture whatever was unfolding. Maxwell stood eyes fixed on the ground, wishing he could vanish. Georgina's face was pale but determined. The swirling tension could be felt by every soul present, as though they collectively held their breath, waiting for the bride's next words. Before Clarissa continued, her voice trembled, and she looked at Georgina with an odd mixture of empathy and sorrow. "This is Georgina Coleman," she announced, "and she's carrying Maxwell's child." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests stood craning their necks for a better view. Others exchanged stunned glances, already anticipating how the tabloids would devour this story. Billionaire drama at Highclere Estate. Could there be a bigger scandal? Maxwell stepped forward, his face ashen. "I owe everyone here an apology, especially Clarissa and her family. Georgina and I have a history that I never properly disclosed. She's pregnant with my child, and I've kept it a secret out of fear. I'm sorry." His words hung in the air. Clarissa lifted her chin, tears brimming in her eyes. "I love Maxwell," she admitted, voice cracking. "But I also believe that if we are to move forward in any capacity, it has to be grounded in truth. For too long, I've lived under expectations my father's societies, even my own illusions. Today, I'm breaking that pattern." She paused, glancing at Georgina, who seemed stunned by Clarissa's courage. Then Clarissa turned to the officiant. "We will not continue with the wedding as planned. Instead, I need to figure out what love and honesty mean in this new reality." A hush fell again, the crowd unsure whether to applaud her bravery or reel from the shock of it all. In the moments following Clarissa's announcement, chaos ensued. Some guests quietly gathered their belongings, whispering words of comfort to one another. Others lingered, hoping for more revelations, or even a last-minute reconciliation. The press, who had been stationed outside the estate to cover the so-called wedding of the year, rushed forward with cameras and microphones. Sterling Townsend, though disappointed and livid, respected his daughter's decision. He motioned for security to manage the crowd. Andrew Carmichael gently guided Georgina away from the throng, shielding her from intrusive photographers. Maxwell reached for Clarissa's hand, but she pulled away, her eyes brimming with tears. "I need time, Max. Time to understand what we are, if we are anything anymore. And Georgina needs space to figure out what she wants from you as the father of her child." He nodded, feeling a hollow ache in his chest. The fairy tale had unraveled in front of a live audience, but for the first time, everything was out in the open. There were no more secrets to guard. All that remained was the hard, uncertain path of making amends, if amends were even possible. Clarissa turned her back on the throng of guests, and with her father at her side, made her way back into the estate, tears trailing down her cheeks. Within hours, news outlets and social media platforms exploded with coverage. "Millionaire grooms secret baby bombshell." The headline screamed. The Townsend family's PR team scrambled to issue statements that were both compassionate and firm, emphasizing Clarissa's right to privacy and the family's unwavering support for her decision. Meanwhile, Maxwell's phone buzzed incessantly, with calls and messages from board members, curious acquaintances, and even opportunistic journalists, seeking an exclusive interview. Harrington Financial's stock dipped slightly as investors worried about the scandal's potential impact on Maxwell's leadership. Sterling Townsend cancelled the official business merger until further notice, putting a multi-million-dollar deal in limbo. Maxwell spent the next few days holed up in his penthouse, ignoring almost everyone except for Andrew Carmichael and occasionally Georgina, who bravely tried to maintain some semblance of routine amid the chaos. Clarissa, sequestered at her father's downtown residence, refused to respond to Maxwell's messages. Samantha Diaz, ever the loyal friend, stood guard, screening all calls and offering Clarissa tissues and comfort in her heartbreak. The world outside buzzed with gossip, but inside Clarissa's sanctuary, a quiet heartbreak reigned, overshadowed by a question none could answer. Where do they all go from here? 10 days passed before Clarissa finally agreed to meet Maxwell. 10 long, aching days filled with silence, headlines, sleepless nights, and unanswered questions. In that time, the world had moved on to fresher scandals, but her world had not. Hers was still frozen in that moment at Highclere Estate, the moment when everything she believed about love, loyalty, and her future had shattered. She chose a small, quiet cafe on the Upper West Side for their meeting, a place so unassuming that not even the most persistent paparazzi would bother lurking there. It was the kind of spot she used to love, before life became all press releases and posed photos. She wore no makeup, a simple wool coat, and her hair tied back, the opposite of the glamorous heiress the public knew. Today she wasn't a socialite, just a woman nursing a broken heart. Maxwell arrived a few minutes late. He looked older, like the weight of his choices had aged him. The sharp lines of his bespoke suit couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes or the slump in his shoulders. As he approached the table, Clarissa didn't stand. She merely looked up and said, "Sit." He did. The silence stretched. Maxwell tried to speak twice before words finally came. "I know I've said I'm sorry 100 times, but it's still not enough. And maybe it never will be." Clarissa nodded slowly. "No, it's not enough. Not yet." She stirred her tea without sipping. Maxwell watched her, unsure if he was waiting for forgiveness or a final sentence. He had rehearsed what he'd say, but none of it seemed to matter now. Not with her sitting across from him, so heartbreakingly real. "I loved you," Clarissa said, her voice quiet but unflinching. "Maybe I still do. But you lied to me. You lied in the worst way, by omission. You made me dream of a life while hiding a truth that changed everything." Maxwell lowered his eyes. "I was terrified, not just of what would happen between us, but of failing everyone, your father, the business, our families. I made a coward's choice." Clarissa looked out the window, blinking back a tear. "You weren't just a man I was going to marry, Max. You were the person I chose. I defended you. I loved you when you were too tired to love yourself, and you repaid me with secrets. I know," he said, voice rough, "but I don't want to lose you. I'm trying to become someone worthy of the chance to make this right." She finally looked at him again, her eyes searching his face not for answers but for sincerity. "You said you want to be in Georgina's life, in the baby's life. I respect that. I would never stand in the way of that. But if we move forward, it has to be with no more lies, no blurred lines, no late-night disappearances. I won't live in shadows." Maxwell leaned forward, urgency in his tone. "You won't have to. I'm ready to own all of it. The truth, the responsibility, the consequences. But only if there's still a chance with you." Clarissa took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. There might be. But I'm not promising anything. I need time, and I need to see if you can be the man you're claiming to be. Not just for me, but for that child. Maxwell nodded, a glimmer of hope returning to his eyes. Whatever it takes. They sat in silence again, not as strangers, but not quite as lovers either. Somewhere in between. Somewhere on the long, uncertain road between betrayal and healing. Clarissa stood first. Goodbye, Max. Goodbye. For now, he asked, hopeful. She paused. We'll see. Then she left her coat fluttering behind her, leaving Maxwell alone with 2 cups of cold tea, and the heavy realization that rebuilding trust was the only bridge worth crossing, now one careful step at a time. A week after their tentative truce at the cafe, Clarissa agreed to accompany Maxwell to Georgina's apartment in Chelsea. It was a mild Saturday afternoon, the kind of spring day where the world outside felt deceptively peaceful. But inside, Clarissa's nerves buzzed like static. She wasn't sure what she was, walking into a confrontation, a negotiation, or something far messier. What she did know was this. If there was going to be any future with Maxwell, she needed to face Georgina woman to woman, with no illusions. Georgina's apartment was small but warm. Soft pastel walls were decorated with photos from her travels, Barcelona, Kyoto, London. It didn't scream wealth or power, but it radiated intention and quiet strength. A partially finished nursery peeked out from the second bedroom, a white crib, a mobile of stars and clouds, a stack of folded baby clothes, already washed and neatly arranged. They sat at a modest dining table, a teapot between them, 3 mismatched mugs in their hands. Maxwell looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to lead or sit back. It was clear this moment wasn't his to control. Georgina broke the silence. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her fingers. "I wasn't sure if you would." "I almost didn't," Clarissa replied honestly. "But I think we all need clarity." Georgina nodded and glanced at Maxwell. "I've been trying to plan for the baby's arrival. I'm due in a few months, and there are things I need to know." "Mainly Maxwell. What kind of father are you going to be? I need more than promises." Maxwell sat up straighter, his expression serious. "I'll be there. Not just financially. I want to be part of her life fully." Clarissa stiffened slightly at the word, her absorbing the reality that this child wasn't some abstract complication. She was a little girl, a daughter, a life already beginning. Georgina turned to Clarissa. "I don't want to cause more pain. I didn't come back to ruin your relationship. I came back because I couldn't raise this child in secrecy. I want to co-parent with dignity, that's all." Clarissa took a breath before replying. "I understand, and you're right to expect that. But I need to protect myself too. I don't want a future built on silences or side agreements. If Maxwell and I are going to move forward this child, and you can't be a hidden part of his life. We either live in truth or we don't live together at all." Georgina's eyes softened. "That's fair." Maxwell, quiet until now, spoke with urgency. "I know I've made every mistake in the book, but I'm trying to learn from them. I want to be a father to this child, and I want to be a better man for both of you." Clarissa. "I still love you. I always have. But I know that love means nothing if it's not rooted in truth." Clarissa's eyes shimmered, but she held firm. "Then prove it. Be present. Be consistent. and don't make me question your loyalty again, not to me, and not to her." The air between them crackled with emotion. There was no resolution, not yet. But there was something else, an understanding that while their lives were tangled in the wreckage of past choices, none of them wanted to live there anymore. As they left Georgina's apartment, Clarissa and Maxwell walked side by side, not holding hands but not apart either. There was no promise of reconciliation, no decision etched in stone. Only a shared awareness that the road ahead would be uncertain, and whatever came next would have to be earned. Whether this was a new beginning or the end of the story remained to be seen. Spring passed into early summer with surprising quiet. After months of emotional upheaval, public scandal, and private reckonings, life for the three entangled hearts, Maxwell, Clarissa, and Georgina, settled into a rhythm that was far from normal, but cautiously stable. When Georgina gave birth in early June, the city was blanketed in warmth. Her labor was long but safe, and just before sunrise, she brought a healthy baby girl into the world. She named her Ava Coleman Harrington, giving the child both her lineage and her independence. Her cry was strong and immediate, a declaration of life louder than any press release or wedding vow could ever be. Maxwell was there. He held Georgina's hand through the pain, and when Ava arrived, he broke down. His tears weren't for the scandal or the regret, but for the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. He was a father, not just by biology, but by choice. When the nurse handed him Ava, he trembled. She was tiny, wrinkled, beautiful, and she was his. Clarissa visited the next day. She brought yellow roses, a quiet smile, and a heart still unsure of its direction. Seeing Georgina in the hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, and Ava asleep against her chest, stirred something complicated in Clarissa's heart. Not resentment, not jealousy, but a strange, aching tenderness. "She's beautiful," Clarissa whispered, gently touching the baby's foot. Georgina gave a tired smile and nodded. For a long moment, the two women sat in silence, connected not by friendship, not by forgiveness, but by the undeniable bond of shared history and shared future. Maxwell stood nearby, watching the surreal scene unfold, the woman he had nearly married and the woman who bore his child coexisting peacefully in the same room. He knew it was fragile, temporary even, but it was something. The media, ever hungry, had shifted its attention to newer scandals, though the headlines about the wedding that wasn't still lingered in gossip columns. Harrington Financial's stock had recovered slightly after Maxwell issued a formal statement taking full responsibility and outlining his plans to remain an active father. Sterling Townsend had resumed cautious talks about a business partnership, not because of family ties, but because, under Clarissa's urging, he saw value in a man who owned his mistakes. Clarissa, meanwhile, was redefining her future. She declined invitations to charity. Galas stepped away from the socialite circuit and spent her days at an art residency, upstate, painting in a converted barn, and rediscovering her voice. The quiet gave her clarity. She wasn't running away from the past, she was making room for a new version of herself, one that didn't exist for headlines or her father's approval. As for her relationship with Maxwell, it unfolded cautiously. They spoke often long walks through Central Park dinners at her apartment, messages exchanged between board meetings and doctor's appointments. There were no proclamations of love, no rescheduled wedding. Only the soft rhythm of rebuilding trust brick by brick. One warm evening, Maxwell joined Clarissa at the art studio. He watched her paint in silence, mesmerized by the fluid grace in her movements. "Do you think we'll ever find our way back?" he asked gently. Clarissa paused, her brush hovering over the canvas. She turned to him and said, "Maybe. But if we do, it'll be something new. Not a return. A beginning." He nodded, knowing she was right. The ring Maxwell had dropped at the altar all those weeks ago remained in its velvet box tucked away in a drawer. He hadn't touched it since. Perhaps one day he would. Or perhaps he never would. Because love, he had learned, isn't forged in grand gestures or million-dollar venues. It's stitched together in vulnerability, truth, and the willingness to stay, even when things fall apart. As Ava cooed in her crib and summer light spilled into the windows of 3 separate homes forever bound by one event, the future remained uncertain but open. And sometimes that was enough. Love and betrayal, wealth and heartbreak. This story reminds us that even the most picture-perfect moments can collapse beneath the weight of hidden truths. Maxwell, Clarissa, and Georgina stood at the center of a social and emotional tornado, forced to confront who they truly were and what they valued most. Though the wedding day ended in chaos, the unraveling also paved the way for genuine honesty and unexpected kinship. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey full of drama twists, and ultimately, the courage it takes to face the truth. If you were captivated by this tale, please show your support by hitting the like button, sharing with friends, and subscribing to our channel. Your engagement helps us bring you more riveting stories that explore the complexities of love life and second chances. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your stories bold.